Hello everybody, Adrian Class here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
Hi, number 74, the year after my birthday, other than that totally meaningless.
I'm sure it's meaningful for somebody.
Oh yeah, someone who's 74, of course, yeah.
Or something else. Be good to know if there's any connection from anybody about 74.
Alright, well tell us if there is. I was very interested in an email we had from somebody who we know a bit, quite a lot actually, known a while, about not finding it very easy. This is what he was talking about his own life. Not finding it very easy to move from, as he calls them, exciting experiences with God to BAU.
What's that?
Do you know what BAU stands for?
No, but it's bound to stand for something.
It does. It stands for business as usual.
Okay.
So I guess what he means is that a lot of the time you're doing whatever is needed to be done, and you do it as well as you can. But every now and then God seems to speak or do something, and that's really exciting.
It's not a bad way of describing it, really, is it?
No, it's okay, actually. Yeah, no, I went along with that. I just thought, I'd be honest with you, when I read it, I thought the time is long gone when I wanted to manufacture things happening, and now that I'm in that position, I think things happen intermittently, specific things. And I'm just glad to be of use, to be honest. I mean, I'm just to be part of the job is what I want.
And we're never going to understand, are we, why God sometimes does speak into situations really, really clearly.
Yeah,
and
sure,
we've just had this week, haven't we, at Scargill House, where we've been talking with other people and finding that their experience is like ours, isn't it, really? That you can go... You can feel so disappointed, you can go along. Business as usual often means sort of not a lot happening, really.
Yeah.
But of course, this week we were thinking about Moses, and somebody said, well, why did God not speak to anybody for about 350
How many years? 350
well, it's a
years.
lot, know.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know. It seemed a long time.
The Bible doesn't actually record long, boring episodes, does it? It doesn't say... it recorded the fact that God hadn't done anything in that time.
Yeah.
But, the New Testament is the same, isn't it? You know more about Paul than I do. He had long periods, didn't he? Where
he did. It's very easy, isn't it, to concertina them, because actually there were some amazing miracles and there were some brilliant escapes and quite extraordinary things. But, you'll get a sentence when it says something like Paul spent 3 years trying to persuade people about something before he moved on.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that I've thought while we were at Scargill this week, one of the things we like best is hearing stories, always. That's the bit of any event we run or that we do anywhere that we like best. And there was something about stories people told us this week. I think they felt safe, which is good, and comfortable to tell them. And they were about key moments in their lives when a change happened because as far as they could see, something intervened and made that possible.
Yeah, what was interesting, and I think anyone who was with us on the week we've just had would agree that in terms of testimonies, most things that were happening in people's lives were pretty tough, actually.
Yeah.
But they had all had an experience at some point of something really clear happening that remains clear in their memory. And I think for me that's significant, when something doesn't fade and you don't begin to doubt it because you knew that at that moment it was real. And everybody wishes it was happening more often. Of course they do. Yeah. Of course they do.
I was very moved by some of them. There was one person who clearly wanted to have an exciting life doing things for God. And, and the job she was given when she said that was right next to her, wasn't it? Right in her face.
And she accepted it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
She accepted it
Absolutely.
And she's done it.
Yeah.
I really
her business as
that.
Usual is going to be a way of life for all of her life, isn't
That's
it?
Right. Yeah,
looking after this one person who's really needs her. And a lot of it won't be seen by anybody except God.
Yeah, that's
really.
Right. And the thing that these stories did have in common, unlike some stories you hear, was that they felt genuine and authentic. I mean, certainly in the perspective of those who told them, but they sounded like things that had happened and had changed
I
lives.
had no doubt. They absolutely no.
And it can be very annoying, if we may say this, when someone claims to be hearing from God, and especially when they are always hearing from God. I think
well, there was a bit of a phase of that, Adrian.
There was
wasn't
a phase,
there?
yes,
When everybody seemed to be being chatted to by God over the breakfast table. I passed the marmalade to God, and He said, and then He passed the toast to me.
There who said, who was talking exactly like this, and I said to God, and God said to me. And the one I remember in particular is the man in the study group who always knew which scripture we should look at, and you have to believe me when I say this is true. So everybody's getting a little piddled off with him, to be absolutely honest.
That's a Christian expression.
It is a Christian expression. It's in the book of. I'll tell you later. Yeah, he always knew what God wanted us to read. One day, he said, in that soupy voice that people do sometimes use, he said, "Can I just stop you all?" So we said, "Yes." And he said, I think the Lord is telling me what we should be reading. So we said, "Yes." And he said, "I think what the Lord wants us to read is Ephesians chapter 7. Well, I was filled with a burst of joy, because there is no 7th chapter in Ephesians, and it was with pungent relish disguised as concern that someone said, there isn't a 7th chapter, is there, in Ephesians? And this is the point at which you'd think he would back off, isn't it? He said, obviously what the Lord meant, he said, was the 1st chapter of Philippians, the following book. I mean, for goodness sake.
I find the idea of God thinking in heaven, oh, blimey, did I get that wrong?
That's right.
And asking for a Bible
did
so
I
he
say
could check
Ephesians?
it out.
Yeah, did I say Ephesians? I meant Philippians. No, it isn't right. And I think it is also in this context worth reflecting on the fact that God is probably doing all sorts of things during the silences that we don't know about. And there's a psalm that I've always been very fond of about that. I love the first line of it. I'll read a bit of it to you. It's Psalm 124. If the Lord had not been on our side, let Israel say, if the Lord had not been on our side when people attacked us, they would have swallowed us alive. When their anger flared against us, the flood would have engulfed us. The torrent would have swept over us. The raging waters would have swept us away. Praise be to the Lord, who has not let us be torn by their teeth. We have escaped like a bird from the fowler's snare. The snare has been broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. It's a strong message, that, isn't it? And we know people are going through appalling things and might say, well, my snare has been broken, I think, and I don't think I have escaped. But if you belong to him, you will, in the best sense, be safe where you are. You really, as we've just saying, don't have to always pray in order for God to do things. And have we got that poem that we wrote ages ago about not praying, haven't we? Is it one of these, Yeah, this is called, I hope people won't be offended by this. Do you think they will be? They might be.
They can always switch you off, darling.
That's true, they can switch me off. They won't now, though, will they? Everywhere we've ever been, anywhere in the world, if I've got something a bit iffy, if I start by saying, I don't think you'd want to hear this, it's a little bit over the line. There's a chorus of, no, we want to hear it, So, anyway, this one's called Damn, I Wish I'd Prayed. I drove to town this morning, it wasn't very far, but all the way I asked myself where I would park the car. Imagine my amazement when, in Devonshire Parade, I found a perfect parking space. Damn, I wish I'd prayed. In April at Spring Harvest, our chalet was complete, except that towels were not supplied. We'd have to use a sheet. My chalet mate said, "Problem solved, my son's come to our aid. His car is stacked with extra towels. Damn, I wish I'd prayed." We planned a parish picnic on a day in late July, hoping that in summertime the weather would be dry. When I awoke to cloudy skies and rain, I was dismayed, but just in time. The sun came out. Oh, damn, I wish I'd prayed. Absolutely ridiculous. But nowadays, there was a lot of this car parking stuff at one time, and people were often saying, "God saves me a parking space."
Well, and there have been times, Adrian, when I have been desperate and something like that has happened.
Well, that's great.
And that's the point, isn't it? That it's up to God. And that He wants us to talk to Him all the time.
Yeah.
But like you're saying in your "Damn, I wish I'd prayed," He is actually quite capable of doing things without us wanting a neat solution to a prayer. He cares for us.
I know. It's lingered in my head. So when we now go into an empty space, the words "damn, I wish I prayed" go through my head. Anyway. I mean, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with business as usual. But I know what our friend means. We do look forward, don't we, to the times when God drops in, pops in, turns up, or just whispers in our ear.
I mean, there is a danger, isn't there? There is a danger that expectation is so worn out, that you have prayed, you have tried, you have maybe tried to work out why you haven't heard from God for ages and ages and ages. There is always a danger that you stop believing it's possible He might drop in.
Yeah, I suppose you could.
That things have become so grey and so miserable, really. One of the things that I think has been extraordinary about this week, and obviously we've got the COP conference going on, and there are some good things. There's some frightening news that some countries aren't going to be involved. But I think what I've loved is there is a sort of appreciation worldwide of what a beautiful planet we live on. I don't understand why people don't make the connection between God or between the fact that when you see one of these amazing sunsets that we've had recently and it makes you want to cry, what's that got to do with just the human race continuing? There's got to be something more. And I some of the sunsets, some of the beauty that we saw up in the hills in Yorkshire, but actually I saw driving home along the road from Bishop Auckland, today. You don't have to be in a beautiful countryside. You suddenly see something. And did you realise that in Scotland at the moment they're seeing the Northern Lights really clearly?
Yeah, I saw that.
Amazing colours dancing in the sky. To go up up I know, but it is a lovely thing.
That's great. No, it's really, really wonderful. Yeah, well, ages ago, you will remember, of course, we were driving along the Pevensey Levels, which is near Eastbourne.
Which is where we lived, wasn't it?
Which is where we lived. We lived in a place called Hailsham, and we were driving down towards Eastbourne across the Levels. And it was October, so it was around this time. And it was 6 o'clock, I know that for sure. And I know what the sun was doing. I know what the sky looked like. And that stayed in my mind. And I always wanted to try to capture the feeling of God or somehow God entering into my life. And this poem, which you're going to read, which is just called Angel, I thought we may have read it before.
We may have read it on another autumn, Adrian.
We may,
because this isn't the first autumn of making these little recordings, is it? So we might well have done.
And here we are,
back in autumn.
Back in autumn, so it's dead online, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, read it to people.
I'll have a go. 6 o'clock. The sky that evening autumn grey, a shining dome, The sun, a glowing tangerine that rolled along the far horizon. I don't remember where I'd been, and he was just a shabby figure standing by the roadside near my home. I parked the car and stood a while, enjoyed the way October daylight sweetly, sadly dies, and then turned and walked towards the stranger. I don't know why, except that when I'd passed, I'd seen a warm and strange expression in his eyes. And when I asked where he was going, he just smiled and said, "Well now, my friend, I don't believe I know, but that's no reason not to go, unless you need me." "Come eat with me," I said, "and stay a while. There's food for two, and the sofa makes a fair to average bed." He said okay, and we went inside. I lit the lamps and poured some wine. We talked, and soon some orphan hope broke down the wall and wept through every stumbling word of mine. How the darkness circled round us. Like a disappointed foe, it crouched and waited hungrily. It filled the space behind the lamplight. But we were safe inside the glow. And the wine was more than nectar, blood red in the gleaming of the fire. His touch upon the bread disturbed me. Something far beyond recall or underground. And then a smiling benediction seemed to fall and work a little miracle, a relaxation in my heart. I heard a sound, my own voice, live with wakened passion, breaking with a nameless yearning, like a long-forsaken child who is sick of running wild in desert places. "Where's your home?" I asked. "Perhaps one day I'll visit you." His eyes were burning coals. He whispered, "Yes, I hope you will." We said good night. He slept. I wandered out. The air was cold and clean, and looking up for one eternal moment, I felt homesick for a place I'd never seen. Later, when the dawn was breaking, later when the day was there, when I awoke in sore distress to find the morning grey and silver, I was quick to rise and dress, almost ran towards the stairway, hoping that my friend would still be there. But far away and in my mind, I seemed to hear a distant ocean sighing to the shore, a sound like giant wings in motion. Down below, the sheets and rugs were piled neatly, and too much money lay beside the door. Though I called out through the doorway in my heart, I knew he must be gone. The silence was profound, and the countryside around was cold and empty. "Just one more day," I said. He could have stayed. To leave so soon with countless questions waiting to be asked. I closed the door. Inside, the fire was dead, but in the gentle air, a gentle warmth caressed the autumn morning as it glowed and loved and softly lingered there. And the words he spoke that evening were so full of love and light that the agony inside me was attacked and put to flight. And you may believe I'm crazy, I may believe you're right, but I think it was an angel that I entertained that night. Because this was fiction, wasn't it, Adrian? But every now and then you hear a story and you know 100% that something as extraordinary as that has happened in people's lives, ordinary people, people like us, people who are living business as usual, wishing something wonderful would happen, and for a moment something does.
And we have stories, don't
Of course we do.
It's good to know. I mean, to be able to say to people, things will happen, things do happen, and that feeling of adventure, of new contact, is, for me, is one of the most wonderful things in the world.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
And if you've got wonderful moments you want to tell us about, we'd love to hear about them.
Yes,
and
of course we
look out for
would.
them, even despite all the things that are going on and all the stuff that's happened.
Yeah. Something even more wonderful than the Northern Lights.
Yeah, that's right. This could happen in your living room. You never know. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Of course it would.
Well, let us know if it does. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.